Hey guys, we're live now at Peninsula for our business tribe group, just to our Facebook group. So there's a few people here. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. Missing those who are not here, but now we're going to switch it to Carolin and get started.
Hey, and I hope you guys can hear me. I'm going to be not looking directly at you most of the time. Probably I'm going to be looking at the people, but I will try to look at you too and include you. And if you can hear me, if you can just say something in the comments, that would be great. Awesome. Can you hear me good enough because there's background noise? Hi. Hi.
Hi, Cameron.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me on the Facebook group? Okay, you can hear me.
Good.
Perfect.
Just be loud still.
Yeah.
It's just us.
Yes. Okay, so my name is Carolin. I'm originally from Germany. I've lived the past 14 years in California. I have two kids that are Californians that were born there. And now I live just down the road in Pamul here. My dream was to live in a tropical climate, and so my dream has become a reality, but that wasn't always the case. So last week we talked about power and how we give power away, and I actually wanted to pick up because that really struck a nerve with a lot of people. And so for me, and I'm going to tell my story just briefly so that all of this makes sense, I have come to a place in my life where I look at everything through the lens of energy. And so the reason why that is because almost 6 years ago, in April, it will be 6 years ago, I found myself on the couch with adrenal burnout, chronic fatigue. I had a 16 months old and an almost 6-year-old, and I mean a 6-year-old was in kindergarten, but my son was at home. My husband at the time was working all day, and I literally could not I had no energy. It was literally like somebody had pulled the plug. And when you're in that state, you realize how important it is to actually have energy, and that without any energy, nothing is possible. And so for me at the time, just so you can picture this, we were living in Santa Barbara, which is nice, but we were literally living in the slums of Santa Barbara. So a one-bedroom apartment in a big complex wedged in between the freeway and the train tracks. The police came frequently to the neighbors. I'm sure they dealt with something. We were going through bankruptcy. I was married to somebody I didn't love really. And I had the physical stuff going on. So in my life, basically, the outpicturing was an outpicturing of complete lack and negativity. And so one evening, it has just been a really hard day again. My then husband came home, and I just kind of said to him, I can't do this anymore. I can't be home and watch these kids as they're responsible. I can't take care of them. And he was overwhelmed himself and not thinking much. And he just said to me, well, you wanted to be a mother. And when he said that to me, just something inside of me snapped. And all I remember is basically leaving my body, hovering under the ceiling. My body was on the ground, we had a futon. My kids were on top and they were crying, they weren't understanding what was happening. And even seeing them that desperate did not make me come back basically. And that was really scary because they're really, I really love them and they're a big part of my life. But then something else happened, which was cool, which was a voice kind of said, your work isn't done. And then I was sent back into my body. And then for 5 days after that experience, I basically was in a state that someone would call maybe enlightenment, or basically in a state where everything was clear. There was like there was no negativity, no mind chatter, no fear. I was just connected to everything. And so in that state, I experienced everything very musically. And so the moment I would go into thinking something negative or believing something negative, it's almost like the orchestra in my mind would go out of tune, and I just wouldn't go there. And during those 5 days, everything was provided. I couldn't even decide whether I thought of something and the thing appeared, or the thing appeared and then I thought of it. So it literally showed me that everything that we want is truly already here for us. And the reason why we don't have what we want, or why we're not being the person that we want to be, is because of negativity. And so my state ended in day 5. I got into a fight, and And ever since then, I've been on a quest of basically figuring out how to get myself into that state, but also teaching others. And so I've since then, from going from that state, I've built a multi-six-figure business, have served over 5,000 people, have gotten divorced and married what I thought was my soulmate, who has not turned out not to be my soulmate, but I was in a very much better relationship and with the person that I really loved for the last 2 years. And it also has brought me here to really living the dream of, you know, living in the tropics and working from home and being completely flexible and so forth. And like I said, I've helped a lot of people do the same. And so the reason why I'm now focusing on energy is because, you know, in the self-help or in the self-growth world, there are so many tools and things and affirmations and so many things that you should be doing. And for the most part, like, we've all read it, we've all done it. Has our life changed? You know, after The Secret, has your life changed? After reading, you know about the law of attraction now, but has it really changed? No. And the reason is because there's a ton of information missing. So the last 6 years I've basically spent on studying and really applying universal principles, because they're connected to you could call them energy laws. And so for me, when I talk about energy, it's not something woohoo, it's really literally the power, your electricity, right? The fuel in which you operate. For most people, the reason why they're not able to manifest or create the things that they want is not because there's not enough time. It's because it takes focus and it takes persistence and it takes, I like to give the analogy of like a rocket ship taking off, right? In order for the rocket ship to go through the stratosphere and break through the sound barrier, it takes a tremendous amount of energy. But once it's through, then it's like smooth sailing. And it's the same for us when we want to create something new. It's literally like us leaving our current, the planet Earth, and getting to a new universe. Everything that we want is basically in parallel universes around us, and it takes us leaving one and getting to the next, and that's where most people fall short. And so when we talk about energy is something measurable, and there's different levels. There's low vibrational energy and there's high vibrational energy. We as humans, hi everybody, we as humans interpret energy or vibrational levels as emotions. So meaning when we don't feel good, it just means that our vibration has dropped to a lower, to like 70 or 80. And these things are measurable. So for example, shame and guilt is very low vibrational, it's 20 and 30 as a measurable quantity. Courage is 200. Everything below courage will die eventually. The closer to 200, the slower it will die. The further away from 200, the faster it will die. Everything above 200 will start having more life, increasing, proliferating, growing, having abundance, so forth. So my focus has really become on teaching you what you can do to increase your vibration, because it's not so. The other thing that most people don't know is that mindsets and patterns and all those things, we think they're personal, and to some extent we do have negative imprints from traumas and so forth. But the way we think or the mindsets that we take on, again, they have to do with our vibrational level. So let's say you become, you fall down at a level of 50 or so forth. The law of attraction just states that like attracts like. So if you become a 30, everything that you're attracting or resonating with is at that level. And so the mindsets and patterns and belief systems, I picture them like clouds that are around us. And depending on where our own energy level is, that's what we go in resonance with, kind of like a radio station, right? We tune into different stations. And so why we think our thoughts or we have these belief systems, the truth is we are at a specific vibrational level, and because the brain is just a receiving station, we only can perceive or receive thought patterns and belief systems that are at that vibrational level, basically. And so rather than trying to fix yourself and to release your patterns and to overcome your mindset challenges, it is much faster and much simpler to really just focus on your vibration, because when you up-level your vibration, you automatically go in resonance with the mindset and the belief systems that are connected to that vibration. Is that making sense? I'm giving you a ton. I'm trying to really densify it and make it really clear, and this is very high-level stuff, so so if you have questions, write them down and save them for later. So in the title I was saying, pleasure IQ and how to use pleasure to overcome your self-imposed limitations, because for me, after I came out of that state, I had also been given kind of like a marching order by Spirit that was, you need to learn to make decisions solely based on what feels right and good to you in your body, not in your mind or what's logical or what makes the most sense. No, you have to learn what feels really good to you in your body, what's a yes in your body, and then you actually have to make decisions and move forward courageously based on your internal knowing of yes, this is right for you. And I'm also redefining pleasure, because for most of us pleasure has a sexual connotation, or maybe with food, or maybe with shopping or things like that. But to me, being in your body and just feeling like yes, yes, that's the most pleasurable thing. And so I've realized that we all need to develop this intelligence, so I'm calling it pleasure intelligence and a pleasure IQ. Your ability to allow pleasure in all areas of your life will show how high your pleasure IQ is, or my definition of pleasure IQ is your level of ability to allow pleasure. And so what I wanted to print out is I have a map of a 6-story house, and you can draw this if you have paper with you. And I can email this to you guys too, because there was too long of a line in the printing shop and it made me late to be here. But so your potential, or your life, or you as a whole, you could also see your life and yourself, or the potentiality of your life, as a 6-story house. And 6 stories because 600 is the highest level of vibration that a human body could actually withhold. Like anything above it would just dissolve into light. So Jesus, while he was on earth, was probably pretty much at that level. I don't know if we really want to be at 600, but 4, 5, 600, if you're there, your life is pretty good, and you're also highly effective and efficient in what you're doing. That's the other part, right? And so the pleasure is our built-in kind of compass, whether we're moving up in our house or if we're going down in our house. So meaning that if things aren't quite right in your life, if you start making decisions, if you learn what feels right in your body, that's the first thing, if you learn that. And then second thing, if you start making decisions based on your pleasure compass, you're going to start moving yourself up the vibrational ladder, basically. And you can jump from one level to the next. Tricky part is that usually we can't get to the next floor without leaving the other one, and that's where a lot of people have trouble, because our subconscious wants to keep us safe, and the known is always safe, right? And if you've always lived on the 2nd floor or 1st floor or 3rd floor, going to the 4th floor will be scary. And so that's where somebody like me or another mentor comes in, because obviously you should find somebody who is already at the level that you want to get at, because they know it's survivable and you can lean on their belief, right? It's one tool that you can give yourself. It's finding someone who has done what you want to do and can hold the vision for you, who absolutely knows it's possible because they've done it, and therefore have really they don't have to believe in it. They know it's possible, and then you can lean on their faith and their knowing. And in most cases, it's almost impossible. Some of us get smacked in the face hard enough so that we're willing to just abandon everything and just go for it and just say, I'm just gonna, despite all my fears and things, I'm just gonna go and make the leap, right? But for most of us, it's pretty hard, and it's because our subconscious is so strong. So, in terms of working with energy, even to reprogram your subconscious, scientists, psychologists, and so forth say that the subconscious mind really makes up 95% of our decision making and of us. And if you think of yourself as a magnetic being that attracts things to you, wouldn't it make sense to start working on updating the 95% rather than trying to consciously manifest and work with the 5% that we have, which is a losing battle. Right? And so when you work with energy, that is one way that you can actually basically overcome the negative subconscious programming, right? By focusing on what feels right and good, you can partially sidestep needing to release and reprogram and so forth, and just focus on lifting yourself up. So one of my mentors said that we all have like a God seed inside of us, which is the knowing what's right for us. And it's different for all of us, but it's like the North Star. And so your feeling of pleasure will come from you aligning yourself with the North Star. And because we all have this intrinsic knowing or pull or guidance system inside of us, if we can focus on it, it will overcome any kind of subconscious negative programming that you bring with you. So it's a trick, or it's a built-in mechanism that we have. So let me just look at my notes real quick. And then one of the skills that is really necessary in order to jump different vibrational level is one of the most really feeling your true yes and no, knowing what that is. And then another one is learning what to do with negativity. You know, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling you're not in power, when things don't go your way, like what do you do, right? Because our nervous system is the system through which our energy flows. And depending on what your inheritance is, or depending on what your own life story is, you're more prone to switching into overwhelm, for example, or getting triggered, or your nervous system just getting out of balance. And the nervous system is connected to the brain. So this is where gets really scientific, because we have three parts to the brain. We have the lower part, the mid part, and the frontal cortex. This part is basically the lower part. Is the oldest part of the brain. It's the reptilian brain. It's the part that regulates all our automatic functions, and it's also the part that is connected to survival. All the input from our senses, all the information that we're getting, comes into this part first, and depending on how this part is programmed, it will make the decisions for you and for your life. And for people that have had trauma or are just higher prone to stress, your brain very quickly will snap into survival mode. And when you're in survival, you cannot be creative, you cannot be resourceful. All you can do is survive. And surviving is not thriving, it's not living on the 6th level. So a lot of my approach is helping people work with their own body and their own nervous system, so that you actually have access to this higher part of your brain, the frontal cortex, where you're connected to creativity, where you're gonna have that one idea, where you're gonna make the connection where the next client is gonna come from, or where you're gonna have the brilliant idea for the next business venture, or where you know exactly what to do, you know. And so I have a tool that I teach people that I will send you the recording for, because it would be too long and would take a little time to teach you. But one of the key skills in my life has been to really learn how I can regulate, how I basically can switch the survival switch off in my brain, so that I can stay calm and centered and focused and creative, and for the most part, you know, get stuff done in a month that other people don't get done in 10 years, right? Because you know, we all have the same amount of life to live, but most people live it in a very narrow lane. And when your nervous system gets stronger, and when you learn to work with your nervous system and your capacity to hold energy and execute and think straight, you have a broader bandwidth, because you have more power, you have more energy to live your life and create what you want to create. And so rather than explaining how that tool goes, I will send that to you in a recording, and you guys can also just let me know and I'll send it to you. I call it the emotional integration tool. It's something that I use every day. So using these tools, there's not that many tools, but if you use them consistently, you will end up in a very different space. It's like a ship going, you know, ship setting sail, and then just 1 degree, if they're just 1 degree off from their original course, if they just go a little far, they won't end up in a very different destinations, but over time they would end up in a completely different place, right? And for most of us, the way we're born and programmed by society, if we would just go, we wouldn't end up where we wanted to go. So for us, or for me, it's been crucial to have daily practices that I'm just disciplined with, and that have to do with my energy, that have helped me to with it's not hard work. I don't work very hard, right? The hard thing is to stay disciplined with your practices, and you'll really end up in a very different place in your life. We all are made out of 4 components. So we have the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the energetic. And so the 2 tools, the yes and the no, I have a recording for too, I will give that to you. Those are really more connected to the emotional and the energetic. For the physical, it's really important the way that you eat and that you eat clean, and I could do a whole nother talk. The physical is extremely important and connected to this. You know, I have become a vegan and don't eat gluten and don't eat dairy, and I'm pretty high fruit because those things are high vibrational and they do impact you. And they also, when you start eating lighter, all that negative emotional content will come up and you can work with it and release it. So part of setting yourself free and becoming of high vibration for me definitely has been a very physical journey, and I can give you more information on that too, but if you want to talk to me about that. And then on the emotional front, the modality that I'm, for better or for worse, I'm one of the world leading experts in, family constellations. That has been a very useful tool. And so in my private practice, I practice family constellations. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a way to really release ancestral trauma, deep-seated, any kind of blocks that you don't know where they're coming from. In my own life, I started out being anorexic and bulimic for 10 years, from age 10 on, and was really a very deep and dark time of my life for 10 years. And at age 20, my chances of survival were at 5%. So I did not know if I was gonna be 30 and have kids or any, I just wanted to have a normal life. And I went to a weekend workshop, had a 45-minute experience, and within 6 months I was completely healed. And that kind of set me off on the path of learning that modality and practicing it ever since. So that's a tool that I really recommend. The tool that I'm going to send you is a great everyday, just routine kind of thing. But when you're feeling stuck, or when I'm feeling stuck and feel like I'm hitting against something that I just can't break through, I always go and have a family constellation. So that's another tool. So let me just summarize. We don't have power over other people. We don't have power over for most of our outer circumstances, but what we have power over is our own vibrational state. And we can basically help ourselves be of higher vibration by focusing on eating cleaner and eating higher vibrational foods on the physical level, exercising, obviously, being healthy, having healthy routines, tending to our emotions either through the tool that I'm sending you, the emotional integration tool, or family constellations, or there's other modalities as well that you might resonate with. Energetically working too. When you're working with your emotions, you're always also working with your energy. And then spiritually, have a practice, we all have our own practices, but do have something that you can connect to and commune with and be in tune with and get your guidance from. That's what I wanted to share. I mean, I could share way more, but I think I gave you like the really dense and really good idea of how I see the world, what has worked for me and my clients, right? I mean, I have a lot of clients that come to me and are stuck and then, have big breakthroughs in their incomes or their relationships, because it's all connected. When we go from one level to the next, everything gets better. Sometimes it has to do, we have to let go of the old. I myself am in a process where I didn't know I had to let go of my marriage, but apparently for me to go to the next level and to be who I really need to be, that needed to happen. So we do have to sometimes go through painful experiences as well, but it just keeps getting better and better. So yeah, questions.
Yeah, so do you guys have any questions? Or if you guys have any, type them down there and we'll try and look at the comments too. Any questions? I have like a million.
Good. Before you ask them, everybody can have like a 15-minute session with me where I can look at your stuff and just give you some more specific to you pointers. You just reach out to me, and then the people here will I'll get your phone numbers and so forth. So,
cool.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, I'm just curious, like going from the one level to the next, how it's usually difficult. Is it ever not difficult? Do you have to go through a time of struggle to get to the next level?
I don't think it's necessary, but I think as humans, I mean, I have not learned to do it any different way.
Yeah.
I do know people that for them they can now just, playfully and easily gain Katie Hendricks, for example. There are people that I follow. They do a lot of relationship and play, and they seem to be at a level where all their transformations now come with ease and play. In my case, it hasn't seemed that way. So.
Well, I asked because the book I was referring to last week with the power that we talked about and stuff, that's with Carolin and it's a very, very good book, but she was saying basically you've got to go through the dark course or something she called it to get to the other side, and it was just, so that's why I was asking you that too. So would you say that when people have their midlife crisis breakdown, if they do, it's them going to the next level? Or is that just undealt with emotions that you've been stuffing in your whole life? Or
that's a really good question. So there's another spiritual law that's actually super, super helpful and was really helpful to me, which is called the law of polarity. And the law of polarity states there's nothing in the universe is created half, and everything has its equal and opposite. So an up and down, left or right, dark or light. So the darker you get, the lighter you also go, right? So for people, the reason why sometimes when people are in the darkest moment, their resolve that it'll never ever happen is so strong that they have a really good chance, they have a better chance of actually transforming than somebody who has an okay life. Funnily enough, so if you are in a place where you're just feeling completely pressed against the wall, like, I have nowhere to go anymore, that is the best place for you, because usually at that place we also surrender and say, come, please help me, and then we can go really high, and it's because of this law of polarity. So
interesting.
Yeah. And then there's a question on here, what are some high vibrational foods? Well, the most high vibrational foods are living foods, so fruits and vegetables, and then after that it would be ancient grains like quinoa, amaranth, spelt, and then after that being vegan. So the first thing I described is it's called mucus-free foods, and it's just fruits and vegetables, the ancient grains, walnuts and Brazil nuts, everything, and sweet potatoes, and some seaweeds, and everything else creates mucus, aka inflammation in the body. So mucus-free would be the ideal. Before that would be vegan, gluten-free vegan, with very few processed foods, and then before that would be vegan, and then vegetarian, and then usually comes the standard diet. And I also want to say that, thanks Cameron, if you're eating just a regular diet, do not attempt to become a fruitarian. There is processes, and you actually will have to go through the levels, and part of what I do with people is help them on go through the physical levels of detoxing and letting go of these things and replacing, helping your body change, and so forth.
So are tortilla chips okay?
Tortilla chips are really
addiction to tortilla chips.
Me too. Still, I will admit that I will have them. In the greater scheme of things, they're okay. If you were just purely a fruitarian, you would not eat tortilla chips. But I think, yeah, if you're like a vegan and you're eating tortilla chips,
gotta have tortilla chips.
I know, that's my one tortilla.
Corn, if they're corn.
Corn tortilla chips is one of my vices still too. Did you have a question?
No, so you're doing as well the family constellations.
Yeah.
Do you proceed as a group?
Yeah, so the question is if I do family constellation, I do it as a group. I have different ways that I mentor people. I mentor people in groups, like over 9 months in group programs, and we usually have weekly calls and then 3 retreats. And people are used to come here or come here, and then we do them in a group. And then I have one-on-one clients where I basically step into all the different representations, and so I've developed a way of working one-on-one and also remotely. But I also still enjoy working in groups. And actually, I have a family constellation evening, a free evening for people to just come and experience it on the 13th of March, 7 p.m. at the Brick Spa. So if you want to experience it, come, bring friends. Cool. It's best experienced actually, because it's really, even though I've been doing it for 20 years, it's really hard to describe. Yeah.
My mom just passed away last month, and I have been obviously it still would be incredibly beneficial for me.
Yeah.
But I was looking for an English speaking person to keep them around here so that we could do, and I feel like there would have been a lot of people like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, if there's enough interest for this group, I could also, do a separate thing for the group, or I'm open.
So when you do it as a group, are you kind of like exposing, do you need to be comfortable with the people you're in the group with because you're sharing deep things, or can you be with somebody who, I wouldn't tell some stranger all my weaknesses or whatever,
The interesting thing is that, when I did my first one, I didn't know anybody in the room, and by the end of the weekend, you're like, oh my God, because you will realize we all have shit, we're all the same. And it can be highly healing and beneficial just to go to a group and just allow yourself to be in the process and just see what happens. You don't have to tell anything. Everything that needs to come out will come out in the constellation. Everything that you need for your healing will come out, and nobody will be judging or, it's a very sacred experience.
Because I don't know the way you do it, but normally family constellation, it's you who will have, it will help you in a way, but you don't have to share anything.
I don't need to know anything. I just need to know what your outcome is that you want.
It's all very new to me, so
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
But you recommend, you were talking about 9 months, because I know people who did just one family constellation, but do you recommend to do like on a long base?
Yeah, so the question is, normally, in traditional style, you just go have your constellation and then you're done. You're welcome, Nicole. I personally like working with people and I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and if you're wanting to go from one level to the next, to make it reality in this world, it takes time. And so if I just gave you one constellation, something might shift, but I've also built businesses, and I've been an entrepreneur all my life, so I've been on this journey, and I can help in other ways, and I like being with somebody and holding their hand and giving them the support. So my preference is to actually work with somebody, and we don't do constellations all the time, they're sprinkled in at crucial points, so to speak. And then there's people that have other coaches or other mentors, and and I have created a network of other mentors that know what I do, that will just send, say, hey, you need to go see Carolin and have a constellation, come back to me, that kind of thing. And then there's people that can only afford, to do a constellation, and then it's still better than, not doing anything, and they will still be hugely. So people are in all kinds of different spaces, and so I do offer just single sessions. I also offer like a 3, if you do 3 with me, it's a much better deal, and you have a 1 month of like hand holding with me. And then in the past I've done 9 months and 6 months programs and so forth.
I tend to limit the negativity in my life.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't associate with negative people.
Yeah.
I'm not negative. It's like, if I go to that space, I'm like even keel. It's interesting to me because a friend of mine was visiting from Boston. In Boston, when I was working, it's like a different mindset. You're, faster than this and get out of my way. And,
Yeah.
And like my friend is still in that thing when we drive, and I'm like, it's Mexico, dude. It's just the way it is.
Tranquilo.
Yeah, exactly. I said, you just have to do something. Well, that guy just cut you off without using a blinker, and I'm like, okay,
Mexico.
So what?
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm like, I'm got nowhere to go. I mean, even today, like, if I'm in a hurry, it's still not a hurry. It's like, I'll get there, and in Mexico, you say, I try to be very punctual, but I also understand in Mexico, there's a gimme, like it says, like, 10 minutes late is still being on time in Mexico.
Yeah, in California too. Telling Barbara,
So
too.
it's
Germany,
like-
no.
So it's just.
So
that-
you're in a different state, you know,
Yeah,
because
and I exercise a lot.
yeah, when you're in a different state, you react and respond differently, you know, and that your state is the only thing you have power over. And so the more you work on your state, things don't face you. Like you were saying, they don't face you anymore. You know, you see them for what they are. They're just distraction and not worth giving the energy to. Good.
Cool. If you guys have any other questions, make a comment in our chat or here and reach out to Carolyn if you want to schedule a session. Okay. Bye. Now I don't know how to turn. Oh, there it is. Bye.